I was once his humble shadow, trading 8 years of my youth for 3 years of an unrecognized wife status, kneeling in the rainy night just to stay by his side. He thought he controlled everything, but little did he know that I had been planning step by step. When his company was on the verge of bankruptcy and he knelt down and begged me to reconcile, I just turned away coldly, watching this once high and mighty man completely collapse and head for destruction. This meticulously planned revenge finally ended with my rebirth and his utter defeat. Ava, marry me. Julian Vance knelt on one knee, holding up the pigeon egg-sized diamond ring, with the panoramic floor-to-ceiling windows of River City's most luxurious restaurant as the background, and the glittering city night scene outside the window. His handsome face wore a confident smile, as if this ring, this proposal, was the ultimate reward for my 8 years of companionship and 3 years as Mrs. Vance. Around them, envious gasps and low murmurs arose. Oh my God, Julian Vance proposed. It's Ava Reed, she's been with him for years. She finally waited for the clouds to clear and see the moon. So enviable. Envy? I looked at him. The man I once admired and who made my heart race, now seemed so ordinary in my eyes, even a little ridiculous. I didn't move or speak, just watched him quietly, like looking at a stranger who had nothing to do with me. The smile on Julian's face stiffened for a moment, then deepened, with a touch of unquestionable control. Ava? I finally spoke, my voice as calm as a stagnant pool. Julian, let's break up. The shock on his face was genuine. He probably never thought that I would refuse him. Even less did he think that I would give him such a humiliating response. In this way, in this setting. What did you say? He remained kneeling on one knee, his brow furrowed, his tone with his usual displeasure and scrutiny. Don't be childish, Ava. I'm not being childish. I stood up, looking down at him. I said, we're over. I don't want to be your Mrs. Vance anymore. I paused and added, my things have already been moved away. This sentence was like a bomb thrown into a calm lake. Julian suddenly stood up, his handsome face slightly distorted by shock. When did you move out? How come I didn't know? 3 days ago, I replied calmly, while you were busy preparing this surprise. He seemed to want to grab my hand, but I stepped back and avoided him. Ava Reed, he growled, with incredulous anger. 8 years. We've been together for 8 years, and now you're telling me it's over? 8 years. The number was like a needle, piercing my pretendedly strong shell, bringing subtle but sharp pain. 8 years ago, Apex Innovations was just an idea, and he and I squeezed into a small rental house, working day and night. He promised to marry me when the company went public. 5 years ago, when the company was just starting to take shape, he did propose. Then, out of the blue, a sudden and complete breakup. I tried to salvage the relationship like a madwoman, my dignity shattered all over the ground. One rainy night, I stood outside Vance's house, soaked to the bone, begging his parents to have mercy and let me stay. I remember how pathetic I was then, promising his arrogant parents, I don't want anything, no status, no legal recognition, just to be with him. In the end, what did I get back from begging? Just a meaningless title of Mrs. Vance. He allowed me to stay by his side in this capacity for 3 whole years. The air froze instantly. Everyone around us thought we were about to get married, but only I knew that these 3 years were just his charity towards my humble plea. He enjoyed my company and my dedication, taking it for granted, and I, like a frog in slowly boiling water, almost got used to this relationship with no future. And? Julian's voice was icy, filled with offended anger. Ava, think carefully. Where can you go if you leave me? His words were like a poisoned dagger, accurately stabbing at my pain. Yes, for the past 8 years, my world has revolved almost entirely around him. My career and my connections are deeply imprinted with Apex Innovations and his name, Julian Vance. Leaving him seems like losing everything. That's why he's so confident. He's certain I can't leave him. Julian, I looked at him, my eyes devoid of warmth. Do you think you're very successful now? He paused for a moment, instinctively straightening his back. Handsome, rich, with a distinguished family background. His company was about to IPO, a man standing at the apex of the pyramid. This was how the world saw him, and how I used to see him. But to me, I said, word by word, clearly, the current you is very ordinary, no longer the spirited youth, no longer the deity who could easily stir all my emotions. The halo he wore, I personally added it. Now, I personally took it off. I no longer have any lingering feelings. Having said that, I turned and left without the slightest hesitation. The sound of high heels clicking on the ground was particularly clear in the silent restaurant. Julian chased after me and stopped me at the restaurant entrance. "Ava," he grabbed my arm with great force, on the verge of losing control. "Tell me, why are you doing this suddenly? Just because I haven't given you a title in these 3 years?" It wasn't sudden. His hand, looked at him. It was premeditated for a long time. The shock in his eyes deepened. Premeditated for a long time? He looked as if he had heard a big joke. "Ava, we have 8 years of relationship, and you say you want to throw it away? Are you worthy of your youth?" Youth? It felt like something had hit my heart hard. "Julian Vance," I sneered, "you're always like this, so high and mighty. You think that because I gave you 8 years of my youth, I should be grateful and accept your proposal today, even if it's just a decision you made after weighing the pros and cons. I never dwell on sunk costs." I looked at him, word by word. "Whether it's 8 years or 10 years, once I decide to leave, I won't look back." He looked at me, his eyes complex, with anger, confusion, and a hint of barely perceptible panic. He probably had never seen me so resolute and indifferent. My car was parked on the side of the road, and I opened the car door to get in. He pulled me back again, this time by the car door. "Ava," his voice lowered, trying to recapture the warmth of the past, "don't be like this. Let's talk properly." Talk? Talk about what? Talk about how he proposed 5 years ago, only to abandon me mercilessly because of his mother's intervention? Talk about how he canceled my cards, took away my projects at the company, and even changed the locks, leaving me unable to even go home? Or talk about how, on that rainy night 3 years ago, I put aside all my pride and went to his house to negotiate, begging only to stay by his side? That night, I was soaking wet and in a terrible state when I came out of his house and ran right into him driving back. He sat in the car, rolled down the window, and looked at me with that cold, mocking gaze, saying, "Ava Reed, you really are persistent. Name your price. How much money do you need to leave?" At that moment, I felt like I had fallen into an ice cave. I looked at him, the man I had loved deeply for 5 years, and for the first time, I clearly realized that he simply didn't believe in my love. He thought everything I did was just for money. It was from that moment that I knew that we would eventually come to an end. These 3 years I begged for were just a lingering existence. "There's nothing to talk about." I shook off his hand and got into the car. He blocked the car door, preventing me from closing it. For the first time, a look of helplessness appeared on his handsome face. "Ava, you can't leave." He seemed to want to say something soft, but the words "I love you" were stuck in his throat, unable to be uttered. For someone as proud as him, the word love was too heavy and too cheap. In the end, he chose the most familiar approach, threats. "Have you forgotten what you did before?" he said, his voice low, with a warning tone. "Have you thought about the consequences if those materials are exposed?" He was referring to some non-compliant methods I used in my early years to help Apex Innovations attract investment. That was our shared secret, and also the handle he used to control me. I laughed, a somewhat sorrowful laugh. "Julian, who was it who stayed by your side during the half year you were sick?" I looked at him, my eyes sharp. "When you suddenly developed acute pancreatitis, you almost died. The doctor said you might permanently lose some function. Your family weighed the pros and cons and almost gave up treatment. It was me who signed all the risk consent forms and took care of you for half a year without taking off my clothes. For those 6 months, he was as vulnerable as a child and completely dependent on me. It was also after that that the look in his eyes towards me truly gained warmth, even love, one might say. But I know very well that I stayed, not because the embers of love rekindled, but to fulfill my moral obligations. I need to ensure that when I finally leave, I can leave with peace of mind, without owing anything. I knew you would use this to threaten me," I said calmly. "I'm not surprised at all." Having said that, I slammed the car door shut, started the engine, and sped away. In the rearview mirror, Julian's figure became smaller and smaller. He stood there, the street light stretching his shadow long. On that forever proud and confident face, bewilderment and helplessness appeared for the first time. A feeling of almost cruel revenge rose in my heart. But soon, my phone vibrated. It was a WhatsApp message from him. "Ava, have you forgotten how you begged me to keep you like a commodity 3 years ago? Why are you acting so aloof now?" That message was like an icy awl, instantly piercing through all my pretenses. Tears welled up unexpectedly, blurring the road ahead. I slammed on the brakes, parked the car on the side of the road, and lay on the steering wheel. The pain I had suppressed for so long finally burst. The humiliation of that rainy night 3 years ago, his cold words, overwhelmed me like a tide. I once loved him so humbly, abandoning all pride and self-respect, just to stay by his side, but he didn't understand. Or rather, he understood, but he didn't care. He even used my deepest scars to sting me. After crying for I don't know how long, I wiped away my tears and started the car again. In the mirror, my eyes were red and swollen, but my gaze was unusually firm. Julian Vance, you forced me to do this. For the next 3 days, I handled everything with astonishing efficiency. Equity transfer agreement, resignation procedures. Fortunately, I was prepared. Back then, in order to stay by his side, I voluntarily gave up most of the equity I deserved, keeping only a symbolic amount of less than 1%. He probably thought this bit of equity was insignificant, so he didn't sign a non-compete agreement, which cleared the biggest obstacle for my departure. I contacted Ethan Cole, a junior from university with whom I had a good relationship. He now works for a top investment bank in Hong Kong. Senior Ava, I really didn't expect you to contact me. Ethan's voice was filled with surprise. Ethan, I'm planning to leave Apex and want to develop in Hong Kong. Do you have any suitable opportunities there? Of course. Our department is recruiting a VP with experience in the mainland market. You are the perfect candidate. Everything went smoother than expected. I just finished the resignation procedures when my former colleague Chloe Bell called, her voice trembling with sobs. Ava, now that you're gone, Julian is taking his anger out on me. He scolded me again in the meeting today, saying I don't have even half of your ability. I frowned. He doesn't know I've resigned? He doesn't know. He even said that, for your sake, he's temporarily not revoking the salary reduction punishment against me. I hung up the phone, feeling a bit speechless. Julian probably still thinks I'm just throwing a tantrum, waiting for him to offer me a way out. He's even threatening me with work, not knowing that I've completely severed all ties with Apex. My phone started vibrating again, bombarded with messages from Julian. Ava, where the hell are you? Call me back. Are you with Ethan Cole? I know I was wrong. Please come back. I directly blocked his number, and the world was instantly quiet. I threw myself wholeheartedly into the plans for the new company in Hong Kong, researching the market, preparing handover materials. I was incredibly busy. Julian kept changing numbers to send me messages, the content gradually changing from initial questioning and anger to attempts to salvage the relationship. Remember, when we first started our business, you loved the hot dogs from that shop on the corner, and I would sneak out to buy them for you. You have a sensitive stomach, so I would peel apples for you when you worked late. This photo was taken when we received our first round of funding. You were smiling so happily. He sent me old photos, trying to evoke my memories and awaken my old feelings. Looking at those photos, my heart still aches. I did love him. In the early days of our startup, we had nothing and were crammed into a tiny apartment. He would put his coat over me when I was so tired I fell asleep at my desk. He would buy me a thick mattress in the winter because I was afraid of the cold. He would give me a huge bonus far exceeding expectations after a project succeeded, smiling and saying, "You deserve it all." And even on a snowy New Year's Eve, he gave up reuniting with his family to have frozen dumplings with me in the office, and then stuffed a thick red envelope into my hand. Those subtle moments of warmth, bit by bit, converged into my love for him. But the moon waxes only to wane. Starting too strong, the ending is destined to be hasty. In the evening, Ethan brought a late-night snack, which was exquisite Cantonese dim sum. You've been working too hard these past few days. Replenish some energy. He smiled gently. There were only the two of us in the hotel room, and the atmosphere was a little subtle. Perhaps the pressure of the past few days needed to be released. Perhaps the void in my heart needed to be filled. Or perhaps it was just a simple physiological need. That night, Ethan and I had sex. No love, only physical comfort. In the darkness, I held this young body next to me, and for the first time, I clearly realized that desire can be appeased even without love. This gave me a strange sense of peace. What really made me determined to leave was the public humiliation a year ago. At that time, there was internal competition within the company for the leadership of an important project, and I and another vice president were equally strong. But at the final decision-making meeting, Julian announced in front of all the senior executives that the other vice president would be responsible. The reason was, although Ava is quite capable, she is, after all, Mrs. Vance, having her in charge of such an important project can easily make investors think we are a family business with irregular management. With that one casual sentence, he negated my years of hard work and ability. What chilled me to the bone even more was that afterward, he used the excuse of optimizing the equity structure to prepare for listing to drastically reduce my already meager stock options, and said with a pointed implication, "Ava, I know you're not following me for the money, but sometimes, we need to avoid suspicion." In that moment, I clearly saw the suspicion and calculation in his eyes. He not only deprived me of my career but also questioned my love. The light within me was completely extinguished at that moment. I calmly signed the unfair equity agreement. From that day on, I began to plan my departure without showing any emotion. I sold off the expensive gifts Julian had given me, jewelry, designer bags, sports cars, and converted them into cash, depositing it into a secret account. I started looking out for new job opportunities and contacted Noah Sterling through a headhunter. He was the head of a large investment group in Hong Kong and a client we had once tried to win over. After several contacts, Noah was very impressed with me and finally finalized the position of VP of the Hong Kong branch. Everything was proceeding in an orderly manner according to my plan. The day I left River City, the weather was clear and sunny. Ethan came to pick me up at the hotel. Last night's indulgence brought brief pleasure, like injecting a false sense of calm into the impending storm. Julian's messages bombarded her phone again. "Ava, I know I was wrong. Come back. I'll go register with you right away. I've reserved your favorite French restaurant, waiting for you to come back. Are you with Ethan Cole? What's so good about him compared to me? Ava, please, come back. I can't live without you. I'm willing to give you a title. Let's get married right away." Looking at this information, I only feel irony. A title? If I really cared about this, I wouldn't have agreed to those humiliating terms 3 years ago. He still doesn't understand that what I wanted was never the title of Mrs. Vance. I thought of the half year he was sick again. The Vance family, including his assertive mother, became subtle and realistic after learning that he might have sequelae or even affect his fertility. The number of visits decreased, and there was more reservation in their words. Only me, guarding the bedside, dealing with feces and urine, observing his vital signs sleeplessly throughout the night. Julian developed a strong dependence and trust in me during that time. Even love, you could say. He hugged me more than once and said, "Ava, thank goodness you're here. I will definitely treat you well in the future." I didn't respond at the time, because I knew that I stayed only to pay off all the favors I owed. Only in this way, when I decide to leave, can I leave decisively and without any burden? He thought that was the turning point in our relationship. A prodigal son returning for him, and me finally seeing the light after the rain. But little did he know, it was just the prelude to a carefully planned farewell. At the hotel entrance, I saw Julian. He leaned against the car. He looked much more haggard than the last time I saw him. There were heavy dark circles under his eyes. His stubble wasn't shaved, and the expensive suit looked a little empty on him. When he saw me, his eyes lit up instantly, but when he saw Ethan next to me and the suitcases at our feet, that light quickly died out, turning into unbelievable pain. "Ava," he said in a hoarse voice, taking a few steps forward. When he saw the expressionless look on my face, this usually proud man's eyes unexpectedly reddened, and tears rolled down his cheeks without warning. He cried, like a child abandoned by the whole world. My heart stirred slightly, but only for a moment. I opened the car door, got in, and didn't look back. In the rearview mirror, his figure became smaller and smaller. He seemed to want to catch up, staggering a few steps, but finally stopped dejectedly in place, watching my car disappear into the traffic. The car was silent on the way to the airport. As we approached the airport, I broke the silence and said, "Ethan, thank you." Ethan was taken aback for a moment, then smiled and said, "You're too polite. Senior, you liked me back in college, didn't you?" I said, looking out the window with a calm tone. The smile on Ethan's face froze. "3 years ago, when Apex was discussing cooperation with your company, you deliberately leaked the news that Julian and I weren't married, so Mrs. Vance found out, right?" Ethan's face turned a little pale, and the hand holding the steering wheel tightened. "This time, did you also deliberately reveal my whereabouts to Julian?" He turned his head sharply to look at me, his eyes shocked. "Senior, I don't care what your purpose is," I interrupted him, "whether it's exploitation, testing, or something else. Ethan, I am very grateful for the job opportunity you provided, but I hope that our relationship is limited to a working relationship only. I don't like office romances, especially in a new environment. I turned my head and looked at him. Recognize your position and cherish this opportunity. Noah Sterling is not Julian Vance. He will not tolerate anything that affects work. Ethan's lips moved, but in the end he said nothing, just nodded silently, his face a little unsightly, touching on a subject without going into it deeply. It is necessary to him. I need a clean and pure working environment. The plane soared into the clouds, leaving River City far behind. I leaned against the porthole, watching the city skyline shrinking below, my heart filled with peace. Goodbye, Julian Vance. Goodbye, my humble past. Hong Kong, here I come. Life in Hong Kong is busy and fulfilling. The new work environment is very challenging, but I adapted quickly. The experience and connections I accumulated at Apex are still applicable here, and even more valuable. At the end of the year, the business sector I was responsible for exceeded the performance targets and received high praise from Noah Sterling. I am beginning to rediscover my own brilliance. A peaceful life was shattered by a phone call from Chloe Bell. She cried her heart out on the phone. Sister Ava, I've been fired. Julian said I lost the major client you were in charge of, causing the company huge losses. Which client? I asked. Chloe reported a name, a major potential client I had been following up with before I left, and also a subsidiary of the Noah Sterling Group. I understand, Chloe, I said calmly. You didn't lose that client. I actively poached them. After leaving Apex, you should improve yourself instead of relying on someone else's protection. My abilities are far beyond yours. That client chose to cooperate with me. It's the law of the market. As for Julian, I paused, my voice turning colder. This is just the beginning. After hanging up the phone, I looked at the night view of Victoria Harbor outside the window, my eyes cold. I not only poached Apex's important clients, but also anonymously revealed the truth about my relationship with Julian to several investment institutions that were contacting Apex, as well as details about his crossing the river and demolishing the bridge and his mean treatment of the founding veterans. IPO? I want to completely shatter his beautiful dream. I will make him pay the price for everything he once did to me. A year later, I returned to River City to attend Noah Sterling's engagement party. He's from River City, and his fiancée is a local socialite. The banquet hall was filled with glamorous dresses and clinking glasses. I wore a well-fitting gown and mingled calmly among all sorts of people. Now, I am a rising star in Hong Kong's investment banking world, a capable assistant to Noah Sterling, and no longer the Mrs. Vance who needed to rely on Julian Vance. Then, I saw him. Julian Vance. He had lost a lot of weight, wearing a suit that wasn't cheap but was clearly outdated. He stood alone in the corner, holding a glass of wine, his eyes blankly watching the hustle and bustle in front of him, completely out of place with the entire party. Apex Innovations IPO failed, its funding chain broke, and now it is on the verge of bankruptcy. He looked like a lost dog. He obviously saw me too. He almost immediately walked towards me, his steps a little unsteady, his eyes filled with complex emotions: shock, pain, regret, and a hint of hope. Ava. His voice was hoarse, with a strong smell of alcohol. I politely took a step back, widened the distance, and nodded slightly. Mr. Vance, long time no see. This Mr. Vance was like a knife, stabbing his face pale. Ava, you're still blaming me, aren't you? He became emotional, and his voice rose a little. I know I was wrong. I've had a terrible year. The company is gone. Everything is gone. This is your punishment for me, isn't it? He tried to grab my hand. Ava, let's start over, okay? I don't want anything, just you back. Some people around looked over and whispered. I frowned and shook off his hand. Julian, you're mistaken. I haven't loved you for a long time. I looked at him, word by word, clear as can be. Before your surgery, I was already planning to break up. He was struck by lightning and stood there dumbfounded. Your so-called precipitous breakup was never a spur-of-the-moment decision. I cruelly revealed the final truth. It was all premeditated. The color drained from his face instantly. His body swayed, almost unable to stand. His eyes filled with utter despair and collapse. I thought of 5 years ago again. No, it was 4 years ago. That so-called precipitous breakup he initiated. First, his mother asked to meet me, and gave me a condescending lecture filled with humiliation. Then, my credit card was suspended. The project I was in charge of was forcibly transferred, and I was barred from entering the company. When I returned to our former home, I found that the locks had been changed. I called him, but he didn't answer. I sent messages, but he didn't reply. Finally, his secretary coldly informed me, Mr. Julian has gone on vacation to Europe with his family, and his return date is uncertain. Your personal belongings have been packed and left at the security guard's office. At that moment, I felt like the whole world was collapsing. The despair of being abandoned ran deep into my bones. That feeling, I will never forget it. Ava, over here. Noah Sterling's voice came, breaking the deadlock. He walked over, affectionately put his arm around my shoulder, and introduced me to the people around him. This is Ava Reed, RVP of the Hong Kong branch, and she is extremely capable. He looked at Julian with a cold expression. Mr. Vance, long time no see. I didn't expect you to be here too. The way the people around me looked at me changed immediately. Respect, flattery, curiosity. In the corner, Julian's parents, the Vance couple, looked extremely upset. They probably never dreamed that the girl they easily drove away would reappear before them in such a glamorous manner, and with the strong support of Noah Sterling, and their son, the once invincible Julian Vance, now stood in the corner like a joke, dejectedly watching me, watching this dramatic reversal of fortune at the poker table. After the banquet, Julian stopped me in the parking lot. He looked even more, his eyes filled with a humble, almost begging plea. Ava, tell me, did you ever love me? I looked at him, but didn't answer. Start the car and drive out of the parking lot. Back in the hotel, I rummaged through my bag and found an old photo. It was taken 5 years ago when he first proposed to me. In the photo, I was smiling brightly, nestled in his arms, my eyes full of happiness and hope. I once loved so passionately. I have been so utterly desperate. Now, it's all in the past. I threw the photo into the trash, took out my phone, and saw a message from Ethan, Sr. I bought your favorite, a type of Cantonese congee, and I'm downstairs at the hotel. I smiled slightly and replied, okay, wait for me. Stepping over the broken pieces of the photo on the ground, I walked towards the elevator, towards a brand new life that belongs to me. There was silence on the other end of the phone.